up to 1-6, and one man resurrected him, Kevin McCarthy.
Nicole, there's no question in my mind that Kevin McCarthy, that is a pivotal key moment in what happened. I would say, and I think Claire, who suggested something in the previous block, I think to say that only Kevin McCarthy is to blame here, it lets a lot of other people off the hook. I think the reality is that Mitch McConnell, who hates Donald Trump and hates what Donald Trump's done to the party and hates Trumpism and hates having to deal with all of it. You know, there was that moment where there was discussion, I remember well, of Mitch McConnell putting together a block of Senate Republicans who might vote to convict Donald Trump after the impeachment happened, the second impeachment happened. Instead, he ended up giving a scathing speech, but voting to exonerate him, and then refused to get involved in building a bipartisan, bicameral committee to investigate 1-6. So there's blame to be laid there. Lindsey Graham, that same night on 1-6, got up and said, "Hey, I'm done. Enough is enough. I'm off the Trump train. I'm giving up." He's been one of the most slavishly devoted, toadies to Donald Trump. He said that was a symbolic moment, right? "I'm cutting him loose," said Lindsey Graham, and he was playing golf with him a couple weeks later. I think it's that Kevin McCarthy's move was a symbolic move and an important one, and of course, crucially, what people forget about that, when he went to Mar-a-Lago, he then leaked the pictures to make sure everybody knew that he'd gone to Mar-a-Lago. So it was clear what McCarthy was doing there, but very important substantively and politically I should say, and very important symbolically. But the reality is that you go back to those 147, 149 Republicans who voted to overturn the election results, and the fact that in those days from 1-6 to about 114, that key kind of week, the whole party walked away from the moment when they could have retethered themselves to reality and tried to reclaim some semblance of what the Republican Party used to be. They made a collective decision that they weren't going to walk away from Donald Trump, and they all applied the paddles to Donald Trump's political future and his political influence. And today he is, I would argue, maybe more powerful in the Republican Party than he was even as president.
Claire, Karl Rove writes in the Wall Street Journal this about where the Republicans are vis-a-vis Trump and the insurrection. If Democrats had done what Trump supporters did on that violent January 6th, Republicans would have criticized them mercilessly and been right to do so. Republicans would have torched any high official who encouraged violence or stood mute while it was waged and been right to do so. Republicans would have demanded an investigation to find out who was responsible for the violence and been right to do so. There can be no soft peddling what happened and no absolution for those who planned, encouraged, and aided the attempt to overthrow our democracy. Love of country demands nothing less. That is true patriotism. It's notable, I guess, for the fact that it's notable on the American right that someone who's played a role in winning Republican campaigns has to even say those things. But he exists in an information ecosystem where that will not be well received, at least publicly.
Yeah, if somebody would have said to me 10 years ago, you know, you're going to be on television and you're going to be praising Dick Cheney and Karl Rove, I would say, no, I don't think that's going to happen. That will not happen to me ever in any lifetime. But
let's
here I am.
How bad is it? I mean, I guess the better way to put it, and I think this is why it's illustrative, right? How bad is it? I know I have a good sense of where our viewers are. I don't think that there's anyone our viewers are more responsible for everything they didn't like about the Bush-era foreign policy. But Dick Cheney was the only person other than his daughter to show respect for the building. America was attacked a year ago today, and in that building where the attack went down, one Republican, other than Liz Cheney, was in the building. It was Dick Cheney. That's how bad the Republicans are, Claire.
Yeah, and I think what I have to say about Karl Rove and Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney and the other Republicans that are standing up to Donald Trump is that the only way you get rid of a really bad leader, a corrupt leader, a leader that doesn't respect the truth or the Constitution or what is in essence America, is by good leaders. And I don't have to agree with Republicans on everything. I don't agree with them on much. But up until now, there had been an unwritten law that there were certain lines you didn't cross. Peaceful transfer of power, no insurrections, not lying nonstop about the results of an election to your party. Those were lines you didn't cross, and almost all of the Republican leaders are just fine with it right now. And that's why I find myself praising Karl Rove and Dick Cheney, because they're not just fine with it.
Well, and I would say this about what Dick